All right. How are you doing? All right. It is James Keddington here with the Better Me Nation and the Overcome and Become podcast. Thank you for joining. Today is our 8th episode, and I'm super happy about it. And this is a topic today that I'm really excited to talk about because when I first learned about this, it really opened up my mind to a lot of different things, and I'm still exploring it in a very deep way. So I'm by no means am I like the number one expert, and I'm not going to try to pretend to be the expert on this with you today, but I do want to give you some food for thought on the topic. And that's the idea of feminine and masculine energy. And I want to tell you why. I want to talk about it because one, it opened up my mind to a lot of possibilities of helping me become a better person. And it also overcame a lot of misinformation I had about the topic and just some ideas that I had around it that were just not correct. And those ideas I had were holding me back. And so today's episode is going to be shorter than most, but I hope it's thought provoking for some of you and that it's action oriented for all of you. So what does the idea of masculine and feminine energy have to do with the topic, of overcoming and becoming? Well, to answer that question, there's a short answer and a long answer. And the short answer is balance. The long answer requires us to have a more complete understanding of what masculine and feminine energies are. And that also requires us to know what they are not. What they are not is a construct of our gender or our gender identity. While our energies are very much connected to our gender, they're independent of them also, right? So masculinity is often confused with being a man, a biological man, because men tend to have dominant masculine traits, while femininity is often confused with being a woman or female because women tend to have more feminine energy, more feminine traits. But regardless of your gender, whether or not you have dominant masculine or dominant feminine traits or energies, we all possess both masculine and feminine energies, and both of them are critical if we want to confidently overcome the hard stuff in life and ambitiously become the best version of ourselves. So, just so that we're all on the same page, I want to identify what the common traits of these energies are. So that way, as we discuss going forward, we're all talking the same language, right? And I don't think this is going to be a big surprise to anybody, but just for the sake of the conversation, I want to have a good foundation for where we're going. All right. So masculine energy is often associated with being goal-oriented and determination, rationality, purpose, analysis, productivity, action, strength, and problem solving. But left unchecked and unbalanced, these strengths can also become oppressive and domineering, overpowering, dehumanize other people, get involved in pettiness and expanding your own self-interest above that of the group or the community. This is what people call toxic masculinity. And I know when I hear that phrase toxic masculinity, I automatically hear like anti-man or anti-guy or man-hater, right? And certainly people who stand on a pedestal about toxic masculinity are sometimes anti-man, but that's not what it means. And that's not what we're referring to. These are toxic because when they're unregulated, it leads to the overuse of these energies, and this can harm people. Now, feminine energy is often associated with creativity and flow and selflessness, compassion, empathy, inclusion, consideration, collaboration, and softness. These softer, more touchy-feely type of traits, right? But just how masculine energy can lead to harmful behaviors, so can feminine energy. We don't hear about toxic femininity, but it exists. And when I describe these, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. So manipulation, codependency, people pleasing, smothering, and even identity confusion, and often associated with weakness, right? Not that it is weakness, but people consider them to be weakness, right? Even people who possess it themselves think of it as a weakness. And so this is also toxic femininity because they are all also harmful. If you've ever been smothered or manipulated, you know what I'm talking about. So let's talk about now why these are important to us and for us to understand how they help us overcome and become. And rather than get myself into trouble by talking about stereotypes, both in the workplace and non-workplace, I'm actually going to share 4 real examples. I'm not going to name people or workplaces or environments, but these are real situations. And my goal is that you identify with one of these 4. And I hope that by listening to these stories, you can put yourself somewhere in the story, whether it be the person I'm talking about or the people related to them. And then also identify what's the principle behind this and how does it apply to me? So take a listen and enjoy these stories. So I'm going to share the first story is the one that spawned the idea of creating this podcast in the first place. If you listen to my podcast before, you know that I like to play water polo and I'm a referee in USA water polo. And I was at a tournament. Now, if you know anything about youth sports, they're very emotional, right? People want to win. Parents want to see their children succeed. Kids are practicing hard and they want to see the fruits of their labor. Coaches want to look good and be competitive. It's a lot of emotion for a lot of reasons. And most coaches and most referees kind of come into this and justifiably and with good reason with a power play at mind, right? Referees were there to create fairness. Coaches are there to win, right? And sometimes those values, which are both good, sometimes are at odds with each other. And what that means is there's a lot of friction. There's a lot of tension. Well, men who ref, if we're tapping into masculine energy, sometimes that emotion and energy can escalate. And we don't want that to happen. Well, this particular tournament, the head referee, he did not have masculinity as his dominating energy. It actually was femininity, right? Feminine energy was more dominant in him. And just to get stereotypes and all of the stuff out of there, he's heterosexual, right? He's not flamboyant. He's not a stereotypical feminine type of person. He's a normal guy that you would think would have masculine energy as his dominant, but it's not, right? He's soft. He's compassionate. He listens well. He puts other people first. He's kind, right? All these things that are strengths of feminine energy, he possesses to a great deal. And what I really loved about watching him this particular weekend was how easy it was for him to de-escalate situations, how easy it was for him to put athletes and coaches at ease, helping them feel like he's not a threat to them, how he helped other referees feel like they were going to get their fair share of the games, that they were listened to. The way he gave feedback was empowering, not destructive. The feminine energy that he possessed served him so good in this situation. And I know what he does for a living. He works with the homeless population. And he does a great job of that. I mean, these qualities and attributes come across so well and has allowed him to succeed very well in that environment. But the cons of it are that people not important to him stay in his head a lot. Not all people were kind back to him. And he took that really, really hard. And it does hurt, right? But he let it take up too much real estate with him for way too long. And that interrupted his flow and his mojo, as well as his ability to lead with integrity and with passion and with focus, right? So in this situation, we learned that a male, right, who stereotypically might be dominated with masculine energy was actually dominated with feminine energy. But understanding that, he was able to lead out greater than probably someone with unchecked masculine energy, right? All right, so let's talk about the second story. There's a lady who is a CEO of a company, and I actually worked for this company, and I was a direct report to her. And she was definitely more masculine energy dominant. And it was awesome because I could go to work for her, and every day I knew exactly where I stood, right? Every conversation, it was direct, it was to the point. We had focused goals, focused intention. She was great on addressing tough issues head on. She was analytical, and she had a great game plan for where she was going. And I loved it. And she also had great boundaries and not afraid to tackle tough things. Funny part, like this, I wouldn't consider it toxic on any end, but we were out to breakfast one morning, and because she's always just like, go, 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 do this, do this, do this. The server came to us to ask our order, and she told him what she was going to eat, and then she told him what I was going to eat. And then she looked at me, she's like, oh my gosh, did I just do that? I do that for my husband all the time. I can't believe I just did that to you. And I laughed. I thought it was hilarious. We had such a good relationship that I could laugh at that. But that just kind of explains how dominant her masculine energy was, that she was so assertive that way. The cons that came into play, though, was when she ignored her feminine energy too much and gave too much clout to the masculine energy. She actually started to show signs of toxic masculinity. Yes, a female, a woman, showing signs of toxic masculinity. It can happen. This was manifest in her decisions about personnel, who she surrounded herself with at times, and even putting her personal needs above that of the company, right? All right, story number 3. And again, this is a personal story to me. I worked for a large national organization. And when I got to work there, I was really excited to see that half of the executive leadership was female and half was male. And I was so happy to see that we had a great diversity of thought and experience. And I didn't know this at the time, but energies coming out of this and leading the organization. And there was a woman on the executive team, and she was fantastic at her job. She was so good at it. She served on boards in her specific niche for the role she played in the company, right? Her job, industry organization. She was the leadership in the industry, right, for that. And so people looked up to her for knowledge and leadership and mentoring and knowledge, right? And she was not masculine dominant, and I don't know that she was feminine dominant either. I really don't know her well enough to make a claim onto which energy dominated her traits. But I do know that she tapped into both well, because you could see how driven she was, right? But on the negative side, she let those toxic femininity take over in a lot of ways. She was very quick to gossip. She was very quick to manipulate and to control situations and to smother people. And so I don't know if she was extremes on both ends, and that's why she was able to rise the ranks really fast using the masculine energy, but also the extreme on feminine energy that allowed her to be harmful to others in her wake, or if she just didn't know how to check the balances. But this is an example where someone can possess both. Like in my experience with her, she was demonstrating both equally at work, but one in a positive way for her professional growth and development, but in a negative way in her influence. And as a result of this, while she rose quickly in the ranks and had great career success, she didn't have great influence and relationship success, right? So she did well career-wise, but she did well interpersonal well. She did not do well on the interpersonal level. And if she instead had focused on, instead of the feminine traits of smothering and because those are still traits, right? Not to say that women are that way, but the feminine traits, right? Feminine is not woman. Feminine is not gender, right? The feminine traits of smothering and manipulation, instead of she had focused on the ones of acceptance and inclusion or empathy, she would have expanded that influence so much more. And I think her career would have really taken off. All right, now we're going to go to the fourth and last story. So there's a founder of a large advertising agency, And he was very well balanced in his use of energies. He was thoughtful and considerate, but also very action oriented and determined and competitive, right? And this was evident in everything he did at work and also outside of work. I knew him personally and professionally. And whether he was at work he was the owner and founder of this company. So whether he was growing that company, and it was like a 3 or 4 time Inc. 500 company, so great success for many years in a row, or at home with his family and his wife and his kids and his volunteer work, he was using both of these energies extremely well. But as the company grew, so did the demands for his financial and human performance. And the once thoughtful boss was no longer tolerant of other different points of view. Those who didn't share his vision were publicly humiliated and disparaged, right? He let go of the balance he had and let his masculine energy become toxic. And as a result, he and his business partner had a falling out, right? The company went bankrupt, and overnight, 200 people lost their jobs. So here I've shared some examples where people have used, where men who were dominated by feminine energy use those strengths to set themselves apart in industries that are in a non-stereotypical way and really elevated their status. And same for a woman dominated by masculine energy, right? Same thing. But then I also shared an example where a woman let her feminine toxicity ruin something, and a man let his masculine toxicity ruin something. So where do we go from here, right? What's next? What does this all mean to you? What does it mean to me? Well, one, what I hope you do is you consider, what are you dominated by, right? As I've listed the traits of these different energies, you know what? I've come to the conclusion that I actually have a lot more feminine energy naturally flowing through me than I do masculine energy. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have masculine energy flowing through me. I do. But it also answers a lot of questions why certain things don't go my way, or why I'm not doing certain things the way I thought I should, based on narratives, but based on social narratives and constructs, as well as the ideas I have in my head of where I should be personally and professionally and things I should be accomplishing, right? And so as I look at the traits, like I'm like deep in empathy and compassion. I'm deep with being kind. I like to think I am, right? And so a lot of these softer skills I'm a lot stronger at than maybe the more analytical type skills and boundary type skills. So where do we go from here, right? Well, take a look at the skills, right, that I listed off and write them down. But maybe go back and listen to those early on, or you can Google feminine energy traits or masculine energy traits, and just do a self eval, right? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, yes, no, 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 yes, 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 right? And you're going to quickly learn where you're good at, and you're going to see some negative and positives. And maybe you do have some toxic masculinity or femininity that you need to maybe, oh, you know what? I can offset this by being like toxic masculinity by enhancing my feminine energy traits, right? So if you are have toxic masculinity, so you're domineering or you're oppressive, right? You can remove that from you by focusing on some feminine traits such as inclusiveness and kindness and listening and empathy, right? And if you're demonstrating some feminine toxicity like smothering or codependence, you can work on creating boundaries for yourself, right? And working on maybe some more personal ambition type things that involve you versus the broader reach, right? So those are some things you can do. All right. The next thing you can do is, as you consider these, say, what do I, and you've heard me ask this question before, what do I need more of? And what do I need less of, right? You know the answer. So look at the traits. What masculine energy do I need more of? What masculine energy do I need less of? What feminine energy do I need more of? What do I need less of, right? And all of these are beneficial, right? All of these energies are important. And I want to part with just a bit of advice, right? Whichever one is your dominating one, feed it, right? That's where your strengths lie. Your strengths lie in whatever dominates. But if you feed it too much, it can become toxic. So you have to nurture the non-dominating energy. So feed your dominating energy because those are where your core strengths lie. But nurture your other ones so your dominating strengths don't become harmful to yourself or others. Hey, thanks for listening to today's podcast. It was short, it was sweet, but I think it was powerful. And I hope it was eye-opening for you as much as it was for me. I hope you take some deep dives into this topic further. There's lots of people out there. I'm going to put into the podcast description and into the comments on YouTube my favorite person who talks about this, and hopefully you can check him out and learn more about the topic. So until next time, here's to a better you.